Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning. I don't have Sophia here yet, but I'm sure she'll be here momentarily. We have this Zoom whiteboard new thing that's popping up. Did all of you get that pop up?
No. What is it?
It's a service of Zoom where you can have a whiteboard, like, we used to put things up in the classroom or, in different meetings. And they're allowing that, they're facilitating that with a, I'm not exactly sure how it works, although Jean and Jen tried to show a little bit of it yesterday afternoon. But it looks like it could be quite useful for when groups get together and you want to, record your points and do those things. And Julie, I'm so glad you're there and your internet is taking you to the beach, and that's great. So.
I'm glad to be here too. I tell you, it's really frustrating. You get so used to having internet when it waffles in and out like that.
For sure. Yeah, it's
on the side. Usually we have a column on the side for chatting without interrupting the meeting.
Yeah, there should be a chat facility there somewhere.
Oh, maybe you have to click on chat down at the bottom and then it will come up on the side.
I find it very helpful because I talk too much and it's a way for me. I just shut myself up on the screen here and chat, and then people can ignore me if they want to, and that's fine.
Sally's here too. Oh, I'm glad that that's there. And so we're still missing our guest speaker, but I'm sure she's pulling weeds or packaging something up somewhere. And she kept reassuring me that she would be here this morning. So
I'm not the only one here with white hair. But there's a redhead among us. What are we going to do?
yeah, Lori.
That's trouble.
To make sure we see the redhead there.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, today is Endangered Species Day.
Well, this is always good to have.
According to the National Wildlife Federation calendar I have in my bedroom.
Well, I'm pretty wild and I feel endangered.
Yeah, we're going to be next, I think.
I'm going to do something we don't usually do, and because Margie has a very tight schedule, and we are waiting on our guest speaker yet. Margie, would you like to give your report, and we'll get started with that particular input from our reports and our Sierra Club information? I know you probably already knew it was Endangered Species Day today.
So Joan, can you clarify? Are you asking me to give a report?
Well, I don't know if you or Nancy were going to talk about the electrification effort and what was going on with that. And
Where's Nancy? Where is she?
She's babysitting.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, Nancy's the star and the hero and the one that knows all about that. But it is fabulous news that the work that she and two other Snow Owl Sierra Club members, David and Cynthia Jones, have been doing, along with another Sierra Clubber who I don't know and whose name I forget. But it's a big win that Everett Parent Teacher Student Association has come on record as supporting electrification of schools, clean energy, clean schools, whatever you want to call it, going for clean energy in schools and on school buses, which has a significant impact for student health because they don't have to breathe those fumes. So we had a celebration at the social last night about that before we heard from Sean Bills, the Washington State director, I'm not sure his title, for Patty. Oh Lord, I know another Patty. His best name starts with M. You know, Patty, Senator Patty.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exciting news for sure. And thank you for sharing that, Margie. And I'm glad it didn't, Nancy had sent me an earlier comment that she would be, in fact, babysitting today. She could probably make it, she said, for the last 15 minutes, and you were consolidated to the very first part of this, and I wanted to be
Tag team, huh?
I'm not ignoring you, God, but I want to make sure that we're that I didn't get a message from Sophia without let me see. Here we go. And
individual who was always feeling hungry and craving sugar, and based on the fact that they also had low blood pressure, I had them talk to a physician, and they got permission to try a little mini experiment on themselves. And so they did, and that mini experiment was anytime they felt like they were craving sugar, or they were feeling a little lightheaded and dizzy, a little bit of sea salt, a little pinch of sea salt, and put it in.
there was one other thing I wanted to ask, although I'm Margie. How engaged are you with the packaging Amazon effort?
Well, we've all supported it. I think all the organizations I belong to seem to have all signed on. And that's good news, and it's certainly important. Every time I get something from Amazon, I'm just horrified and guilt-ridden, of course, that I've done it.
Know your blood pressure and understand that blood pressure in part is regulated by
One thing I would say is the last thing, I don't order much from Amazon, but the state COVID tests are being delivered by Amazon. The five tests, package things.
Packaging, yeah.
Yeah, the yes for COVID test things at home. And it comes in recyclable paper, padded paper, not a little envelope. So for that, maybe the state was capable of forcing them to do something responsible. I don't know, but it didn't come with a bunch of plastic bubble wrap or anything like that. It came with padded paper. I mean, it was like padded with more paper. Yeah. So
I've noticed that too. And it wasn't from Amazon orders from the state. It was just Amazon orders. And the paper envelope says it's recyclable.
Yeah. Yeah. So that they have at least taken that. I mean, I said yes to the same effort that we're all talking about, which they need to do a ton more. But there's a little bit of progress.
Well, yeah, those are all good things that we're seeing, and I noticed that
Good morning. How surprising. Yeah. Well, last night,
Oh, Valerie's sharing with you the flyer from the Everett PTA Council about their climate change resolution too. So you can actually see it in their own words. So that's great. Thank you. I'm going to move ahead because for some reason I don't have Sophia, and we are here, so we're going to honor your time. Let's say, Sarah, you would be the next one up. Were you ready to share us a little bit about mapping? I know you're excited about it. And did you get many takers for doing the Delta Project mapping idea? We're not hearing you, Sarah. I don't know what it is here. You're not muted, so it's not a question of you being on mute.
Is the background noise we're hearing from Janet's phone?
Janet, is that your background noise coming from your, can you, Janet, can you mute yourself so we don't
I
hear?
will try, just a sec.
Okay. And Sarah, we need to get a voice from you.
You're like a whisper now. If you turn your volume up, maybe.
You're hearing her whisper? I can't even hear the whisper. Oh, Sarah, it's not working. This must be is this a Friday the 13th? I thought that was last week. Last Friday was Friday the 13th. We've got all kinds of little blips going on today. That's just the way things happen sometimes. Sarah, when you get some voice or when you can figure out that problem, we can go forward. I don't even see Kate here today. That's the other thing. But I wanted to review a little bit about all of a sudden I have this Ukrainian special ops, anyway, whatever is going on, a special news report on what's happening. We have our field trips coming up for the summer. Thank you, Valerie, for getting us set up with the Evergreen Arboretum. And we're going to do that on the 22nd. Chuck's and my wedding anniversary. I can't see how if I started out in the trees and I'm still in the trees. I think that makes symbolic sense there. And then let's see, in July, we're going to go to Farmer Frog, who I would love to have here. It really bothers me that because I know Zsofia is very conscientious, so I don't know if something's wrong here. And then the other thing is,
someone text her.
I don't have her phone number to text. I was trying to. In a minute. I'm going to look up Farmer Frog's number on here, and I will give them a call. And I did email her back, but she, as I said, she's been letting me know that she can come. So if she's not here, then it's just a surprise. The third one that we're going to is in Shoreline, and it's a private garden started by a University of Washington professor. And he has some of the oldest trees from our region, and it's native plants with some, of course, since he was into botany and so forth. It's not just natives. He has some exotics in there, but he loved plants, kind of like an early Dan Hinckley sort, and he left his private home as to be a sanctuary for those. So the Evergreen field trip is being asked, Lyndon, it's June 22nd. All of our field trips will start at 11. We're asking everybody to carpool. The price of gas is such, you can share the cost of whatever you think might be fair, or maybe treat your driver to lunch or something. But carpooling is advised. I have to say, especially, I've not been to the Farmer Frog site, but I know for Krukerberg that's very limited parking available at that. It's a home, that has been made into a public place, a public garden, but it's still a private home. 4 acres, but it's mostly plants, not parking space. So with that said, I'm going to let Sarah, are you any better for being able to have sound, or are you good? No, we still can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Okay, I'm going to mute myself here so I can look.
Well, since we don't have anything else to do, maybe we should all share good news. I'll add on a little tiny bit to what I said before. I was trying just to be short, but not only has Everett proceeded pretty well on that clean schools, but a lot of other places are starting to sign on. Port Angeles is moving ahead, and so is Vancouver, Washington. And there's probably others, but that's all we've heard about so far. It's kind of a late breaking news. Who else has good news to share?
Or can I ask a question? Could you reiterate what the good news is about?
The clean schools. What is clean schools?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I can make it any more clear than what I did say, but it's trying to get the schools, of course, the goal is all schools, to sign on to a commitment that they will only use clean energy sources in their buildings and for powering their buses. So it would mean we're trying to get them to commit to electric school buses. And I find it particularly interesting that there is some pretty good research showing that the fumes from the old-fashioned school buses are detrimental to children, and it can especially those who are prone to asthma, that sort of thing.
Yeah, are they going to put solar panels on the roofs of school buildings?
We would hope. Nancy's the expert on this. I'm just a supporter of that particular project.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hello. Oh, can you see me?
For a minute.
Yeah, do you hear me? And do you see me? Hello?
Yes, well, Joan is muted. I will say we can see you, but not very well, and we can hear you.
Okay.
That sun would be,
The
if
sun.
you move around so that sun is.
It's a little better now, maybe. Yeah. It's not very sunny, but it is a little bit on the brighter side finally. Not a November day finally. Yes. So
I would like to, I don't know that she needs a long introduction because Zsofia has been such a presence in our community with her work. And especially known amongst us with the Chase Lake gardens that we supported in Edmonds, and also, but throughout our community, helping children to learn about gardening and about eating fresh food, and getting their hands into the soil so that they are connected to the soil and connected to various things that grow. They're growing.
Yeah, instead of gardening, I took a course in edible weeds. It was great. I eat lots of dandelion greens and all sorts of things. And they're better for you, and they're got lots of flavor. It's just for some reason we don't know about them.
yes.
And so she's gone beyond that, especially during this time of the COVID, what would we call it? The COVID era that we've had to deal with, the confinement. And she has just reached out and fed so many in our community through her efforts and the efforts of the volunteers there at Farmer Frog. She was passion. She just has a passion for growing things and encouraging healthy local eating. And so Zsofia, I do have screen share set up. You know, you can do screen share. You are co-host now, and anything that you may need, please let me know if you need anything beyond that. But it's great that you made it. I know you're a busy lady.
Yeah, we actually had a morning with a few items that came unexpectedly, which is very, very good. But then, you know, there are questions always when people are coming in, how many can one organization take of certain things? And so I had to quickly do some divvying up and sorting of the unexpected inventory. So yeah, that was a busy start. But here we are. So let me see who is in the room, because you know there is with Zoom, it's always a little bit on the different side. It's such a, we are getting used to it. We are all getting used to the Zoom communication and how to interact, but it's a little bit different. And I'm on the phone now, and so it's I can only see 4 people at a time successfully without having very severe glasses on. So you know, because that's the other thing. So yes, some of you actually if you have been out to the farm helping us during these last 2 years, would you be able to put your hand up? Just raise your hand in the, or put a note in the chat, because we yeah, I don't see any hands going up yet, but yeah, it's been something that we had a lot of people come and help with. We have done the school gardens, and you are familiar with College Place, which, by the way, we really hope will get revived now for the next school year. The school district is undergoing again even more changes. As you know, they had superintendent change, and now they're going to have a new superintendent again. And the school itself had a new principal, and now has another new principal. But there is a very strong commitment in the teachers that they want to see gardens come back. And we've been in talks with them. And then we are also looking at verdant, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out a pathway to fund activities at the College Place school, plus at least another couple schools in the district. So, you know, that is very hopeful to me, because schools had been really just going through the ringer this pandemic. This was, I think, if we had to pick a few areas, you know, we did that actually. This February, we were at the Flower and Garden Show, and our garden was titled The Tribute, and we highlighted areas of life where we felt that the trauma is very severe, unspoken about, and will be lasting. And we made a tribute garden for every school and teacher, educators, for the homes, because all of us have been impacted by it, even at home. Some of us were locked into our homes, and others, you know, we lost family members, friends, you know, or ourselves got sick. We of course highlighted the farm and the food producers, distributors, and transportation, and then the forest, because the forest, you know, also has been impacted, both positively and negatively. The forest, actually, with the hikers who found that was one of the only thing people could do, the forest got a lot more attention. So that's a good, that's actually a good thing. And then we had the hospitals, because healthcare, all of our healthcare workers, our doctors, our nurses, are still really traumatized by everything that has been and is going on. And we don't really know, as a nation, we don't really know how to address trauma and how to work through it. You know, or come from often is resilience through no matter what. And we also have a very strong positive attitude in our communities wherever we go. We'd like to focus on the good things as a nation. And when we do that, yes, it drives us forward, but at the same time, without actually stopping and acknowledging hurt and trauma and sadness and crisis, we won't be able to just successfully turn to the next page. We lost over 1 million people to the pandemic now. And so that calls for really serious grieving as a nation. And if we don't attend to it, we are going to leave generations hurt who will not have the reference to even figure out where that pain comes from. So we also had a memorial wall at this garden, and the response to our memorial wall at the show was so strong that we are in the works of putting up as somewhat temporary permanent. So I don't know how many years it will be there, but temporary permanent memorial wall at the farm. We really took the pandemic to heart, and during our March 2020 interaction with all of the systems around us closing, the schools, the hospitals, everything was shut down. We found that the farm was very silent. And at the same time, we were receiving requests from our own volunteers who found themselves isolated in their homes if we could be supplying them with fresh food from the school gardens and from the farm. So we already had, some of you may have been familiar with the Good Food Treasure Box program before COVID. We offered this program as a subsidized food box program. And with that and our school education and outreach, we were actually servicing 25,000 households. So we transformed the Good Food Treasure Box program into a no-fee, to the door, no contact fresh food delivery that was going out every week. And you can imagine that program grew really quick. So we were running 7 routes already by the end of April. And that is when a couple of folks in the Woodinville area contacted us and wanted to know if we had any farm crates they could use to take to Othello, because they were going to get potatoes the farmers were going to fill in, and they needed to bring these back somehow. And we happened to have a lot of farm crates that were actually ready for harvesting stuff into them, and we let them borrow it. And so the first potato and onion load arrived on May 1st, and it was almost 20,000 pounds. So when that pile got dumped on the farm, ready for us to bag and give out, and they asked us if I knew any folks to give the food to, and of course, I pulled out my phone list and called everyone and found out that we didn't have enough food to share. We thought it was a big pile, so seeing it gone in really a matter of a couple hours was an eye-opening. And food banks and food pantries and churches and everybody was coming and telling us that they had no fresh food. They haven't seen, there were people who haven't seen fresh food since March, and that was, in May. And so we started bringing it in, and it just grew and grew and grew. By June, the USDA noticed our work, and we got a call, and they wanted to know if we were able to distribute USDA food boxes to the community. And I, again, looked at my list of phone numbers, and I said, absolutely. And so we started doing that. And then we started getting calls from out of the state, in other states, where churches heard that we were moving food in Washington, where the tribes, the National Tribal Emergency Management Council came to us, and they said, they need they need support. Can we help them? And we quickly found ourselves moving food all across the place, connecting, phone calling, managing, facilitating, and also through the farm for our local communities. And this has gone on and still going during the first 2 years. So up until just April 30th this year, we now have moved over 140 million pounds of food. We have been helping a total of 36 states and reached over 3 million people. So our efforts definitely had impact. We formed some amazing partnerships with a lot of organizations. We linked arms very closely with several of the Black and Brown and tribal groups. The National Tribal Emergency Management Organization is now a sister organization to us. And so is several others, the Seed to Fork Farm, the Silent Task Force, Feeding Feasible Feast. These are groups who had a very difficult time receiving support in food and supplies, but they actually are servicing our Black and Brown communities. We have partnered up with the Marshallese community of the state. We actually, our team at Farmer Frog now is close to 50% of our team members are from Marshall Island. What we have learned during these little over 2 years now is the inequities and the imbalances that are that have been always experienced by a large portion of our communities have deepened. And when I think of what your roles are as women voters, there is a really deep running need to influence our policymakers and change the system. It has become critical. We have food bank systems in place, but what we learned over the last 2 years is that close to half of the people who need assistance cannot, for various reasons, connect to and use the food bank system. So right now, Farmer Frog, we have now agreements and contracts with WSDA itself, and we are supporting a lot of folks. On average, it's about 1.5 million people in the state. What we have learned with the WSDA data is that initially we thought it was just overlapping, because WSDA's food bank system also reaches, well, we reach about 1.7 million and they also reach about 1.7 million. So we were thinking, oh, there is a huge overlap. We were very sure, but you know, let's just make, let's check the data. And we compared with WSDA, our data and their data, and there is less than 10% overlap. And so this is when it really hit home last fall for the state leadership that we have about 3 million people in the state who struggle with food access and food security on a regular basis. And in a state that's close to 8 million people, that's a high rate. Certain groups, such as the tribal communities, are faced with 67% food insecurity in Washington. So it is really essential. And yes, I just saw the comment there. We only support fresh foods. So, you know, we don't move junk foods. And that's another very unique aspect of what we do with, now we have over 460 partner organizations in the state. And what we do with them, it's a unique aspect because we actually bring in fresh food and culturally relevant food, because that's the other thing. You know, I am myself from Hungary, and I can tell you that when we are under stress, if I can have my Hungarian recipes for dinner, it's really comforting. The right food makes us feel home. It's healing. And so a lot of people who need culturally relevant food were not able to actually access that. And it typically through the common food bank system, it's been traditionally hard to access those foods. So, you know, what we do is we only move fresh food. And if it is in fact canned or prepared, we make sure that it's not expired, because a lot of times what happens is expired food gets put into the system, but then it just gets stored. It moves here, there, you know, we don't even have storage. I get food in and it goes out that day. Every week we clean out. By the weekend, we only have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we are open. And by Friday evening, there's nothing left on the farm. Everything must go. And that way it's really fresh. We don't store it across for the next week. But a lot of times in the system, it's been warehouses, and then you rotate the pallets that expired and that needs to move now, right? And that's been the tradition. And so we are pushing for change on that as well, because the fact that someone cannot access food, period, for some reason, it doesn't mean that they don't need fresh food. And yes, you are very right. We would have lost a lot less people to the pandemic, and we would lose a lot less people generally to health conditions if we ate good food. You know, you talk to the American Health Association or the Diabetes Association, they will tell you right away that food directly influences human health and the outcome of a disease. And not only prevention is possible through food for some of these illnesses, but the management, once these diseases actually exist, the management directly relates to diet. So, and it's okay to actually consume protein and meat and even dairy for some folks, but we can't be pushing that. We have to have options, and we have to have good options. So that's what we've been doing. And with the over 400 organizations, with the leadership of Farmer Frog and the National Tribal Emergency Management Council, we now have a regional collective. We call it the Fresh Food Coalition. And we have been taking very serious look at how to actually provide food security for real. Because providing food boxes is very good, just like providing tiny homes is very good for folks who lost their housing because pricing is so bad that people even in full-time jobs now, I have to put the phone on the charger in the meantime, but even in full-time jobs now, they just simply cannot get housing, right? And so it is, and it's nice, you know, Microsoft just announced that they're gonna be doubling the payroll budget, and that's a very, very good thing. But at the same time, we know that a lot of people will not be able to do that. And we also know that the tech industry actually drives the prices up for everybody else, and nobody else can afford it but the tech industry employees. So we have to be very careful when we are thinking about what does it mean to have livable wages, because we are still talking about $15, but livable wage in the state of Washington now is nearing $24 an hour. And so then we are looking at hunger relief. Boxes and tiny homes and all these things are temporarily relief. Very important. Very important. Right now with the formula shortage, which by the way, we could foresee months ago, I can tell you right now that food shortages are coming. The formula is just one thing. We are already seeing enormous crop shortages, and it relates to the terrible year that we had last year, and then the hard, not just locally, but nationally, the hard fall and winter weather. Now with our cold and wet spring, it's nice. It's not a drought, but it's impacting the crops in some severe way. we can already tell you that we will be facing severe crop shortages, and then the avian flu doesn't help. So we will see actually chicken and egg prices going through the roof. But back to solving hunger, we really just got to back to dignifying livable wage jobs. That's the only way out. If we are not ensuring that people can work and do jobs that are actually meaningful, that build them up, that will not break them and emotionally destroying them, mentally just causing depression, because that's another incredible downside to the pandemic. The levels of depression and the number of people who are struggling with that severely now is really going up. So we have to have jobs that are good for the soul as well as for the pocketbook, and jobs must be paying livable wage. If someone works full time, they must be able to buy their own food and provide their own housing. There is no question about that. So our coalition actually is looking at it as a fresh food economy, because food can be the means to a lot more things than just dinner. We all have to eat. Food is critical. Food is national security. Food is healthcare. Everything we know right now, even the tech industry, grew out of farms, growing food, harvesting and going out hunting. Every ancestry leads eventually to community, and within the community, food. Our human culture is centered around eating. And it's very simple. Everything on the planet is centered around eating. You know, we really, yes, and I agree with that. We do need that too. We need sex education too, but it's not an or. We must include that and in what we have. And it's not about feeding 10 million people, even if it's just 1 million people. We have to have dignifying livable wage jobs, whether we have 1 million people or 10 billion. It doesn't matter. We can't allow people go without nutritious food. It is going to hurt us very, very, very much. So and it's already, we already see it. So it's a global crisis as well. The pandemic really brought that home, that we really are one people of the one planet, and we are impacted about it the same way, just like with avian flu. Avian flu is not a United States specialty. It happens now across the globe. And we now also have several other veterinarian epidemiologists who are ringing the alarm bell because of the climate crisis. It's really impacting the animals as well. So, and a horticulturist myself, I can tell you that it's impacting the plant world too. The flora and the fauna are both struggling. So we really got to change the policy. We need to change the understanding of our elected officials, because, you know, truth be told, they are putting out one fire after the other. Like right now, I think they are just faced with a total whack-a-mole game. As soon as they solve something, another big crisis is right there around the corner. And we have to make sure that food is a central conversation, because, as I said, it is the pathway to a lot of solutions. It is the sustainability of the food, how we grow it, how we relate to that food, and the trauma actually of our food system. It is critical to be addressed. So because a lot of the energy crisis that we are faced with, if we actually moved to sustainable agriculture, will be helped. Our water shortages will be helped. So that's what, you know, in a nutshell, what my thoughts were when I was thinking about, you know, after talking to Joan too, what would be good to discuss today. And of course, you know, it goes back to what can we do in a school garden? And I think a lot, because we can talk to the kiddos about all of these things, they experiencing it hands-on. And ultimately, it will have to come down to good, strong education. I must say that the pandemic also showed the weaknesses of our education system in terms of grown-ups, right? Who we think they already went through school, they should know, and yet, well, there's a high level of ignorance, let's just put it that way, which is also another global problem. And so getting to the kids and teaching them simple things, that planet Earth actually is a globe, that there is gravity, very important pieces, and I think huge opportunities. So I'm gonna stop now and see if anyone wants to ask questions or say something.
We have a number of comments. Sophia, first of all, thank you very much. And one of our members had to leave today. She has other programs to go to, but your appeal based on the fact that we all need food and that food insufficiency is huge. The numbers that you gave today absolutely staggered me in terms of what you've become aware of, I think, in the food distribution that you've done, and bringing together various partnerships to try to not just be to look at the problem, but try to solve the problem. And I know in my own sense, we do the packs for kids at my church, and we feed the food insufficient students at schools. But it's sent weekly, and there's nothing really fresh in it. The only time we get fresh is when our garden at the church harvests, and has that. So we just have that at that particular point in time. But most of all, it's usually things the kids can carry home in their backpacks. It is backpacks for kids. And it's barely, it is just sustainable food, it's not things that you necessarily want to encourage, and it's not always cultural. I think one of the things I heard you say is that developing the cultural foods that people require, or maybe not require, but psychologically require.
Exactly.
Which is an important concept too. So Valerie, Julie, I'm seeing Valerie and Julie together. So that Julie had a question in there and asking how much, since 60% you said of tribal members make up that's a huge population amongst the tribes. This isn't your whole support group, but of the tribal membership, when you're looking at 60%, her question is, we see wealth pouring into the tribes through the casinos and so forth. Do the tribes have their own support system? I mean, are they trying to do for their own members, or are these tribal peoples people who don't have those kind of resources that we see around us through the casinos that we actually see in our county?
It's both. The tribes are helping themselves through whatever means they have. They also are faced with a lot of challenges, and they often are on their own. There is very little support, actually, from our social systems that goes to the tribes. Many times, tribes are faced with having infrastructure needs. For example, the Makah Nation out in Nia Bay, they are faced with bracing for the rising sea levels. With roads, there's only one road in and out, and that road is a 2-lane road that washes out regularly. They are about 3 hours, because of the road conditions, from the Port Angeles food bank one way. So it takes a whole day for them to go to the food bank and come back. And when they go to the food bank for support, they are only allowed to pick up for their own family. Food banks generally don't allow you to pick up for your neighbors. You have to have it for you. So they are working on putting infrastructure in, as simple as running water, septic. this particular group again in the shores are faced with saltwater intrusion in their wells because climate crisis is here. And just as it's a problem on Camino Island and Woodby Island, it is also a problem at our shorelines where the tribes are. They need to solve that. They still trying to just get the education system up and have internet and actually normal speed internet access for their youth, so that the kids can and the elderly as well can plug into what we are so accustomed to in our cities. So then there is also a lot of need for trauma care. The loss of generally all across the nation, the loss of Native women, the loss of generations to boarding schools. These are deep running traumas that are impacting them, and they are spending as much money as they can on trying to work with this. But as we are working with the national scene, I can tell you that there were countless interactions this last 2 years with tribes where there are no paved roads. So our trucks, the semi-trucks that we were sending, had to stop, and then everything was loaded into small pickup trucks and moved that way because there was no way for a semi to actually access it. Utilities are of short supply. Tribes down in the California area were faced with the wildfires behind the fire lines, and they were battling the fires from their end. The firefighters were battling the fires from the outer skirts. And we were sending food behind those fire lines. And one of the biggest needs were water, because water supply, drinking potable water, is one of the first things that get impacted anytime there is a crisis and there is a natural disaster. We sent a lot of things up to Alaska, the same thing, no roads. In the winter, they can actually access their villages easier because they can ride on the snow or frozen water surfaces. During the summer, it's very tricky because there are a lot of wetlands and a lot of swampy areas, but there are no roads. So these remote areas need things flown in, because that's the only way a lot of times to access these places. And during the pandemic, when the supply chain has hiccups for us in the city, you can imagine what it does to rural areas, and not just the tribal rural areas, but all across rural areas. We have received calls for help, and we were able to help several of these places, not just tribal communities in faraway places where the only solution was to small truck it in or fly it in. Because the US is a vast space, and be on the coastal areas, especially in the cities, are used to much better infrastructure than it actually is in the center. As the more center you go, the less infrastructure you see in the country. So that's why we see a lot of these challenges. And you know, our average numbers with the statistics are high enough, but then you have communities that are just way above the average, and that gets really scary.
I had a question about your volunteers from the Marshall Islands. that struck me as interesting. How did you create that partnership, and where did that come from?
So they are actually employees. We now have over 30 employees, and so half of our paid team are Marshall Islanders.
Oh.
And we pay livable wages. And the way that started is in 2020, we had a partnership with Workforce, and they were looking for a place for for a handful of Marshall Islanders, and the Marshallese people came. We had started with only 5 folks, and within 2 weeks, we had 10, and then within another couple of weeks, we had 15 people. And that's because they feel at home. They feel loved, they feel appreciated. We are a family. And that really is important for the Marshallese culture as well. They are just like most of the traditional cultures, they are very family oriented, very community oriented people. And so having that support and having that that way of existing at a workplace matters. So right now too, I mean, if we had, we definitely have the need, right? Because we have a lot of work and a lot of it is the Marshallese community is actually a very big part of our activities, and we support many of their families in various ways. If there was a hiring right now, and any of the states in the country where we are, we would have a lot of folks from Marshall Island who'd be there in a heartbeat, because our values align so closely when it comes to what community is and why it is important. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I was curious about that particular. There are a lot of things you said that just struck me. I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to, you'll point out this memorial wall. I thought, and the whole idea of tribute walls and memorial walls, connecting elementary school kids to the fact that this has been a huge time of how do I call it, crisis for our country. How else do you call it? Crisis for the world, really. I mean, we do honor a lot of people who died during wars, and we have tribute walls for that. But the whole idea that we remember all these people that died because we just didn't see this coming, and we didn't know how to react, and we couldn't do enough because we, even though there are, these wonderful scientists, it does take them time to work out the ins and outs of how to protect us. During that time, many people died, and then others, and it still continues. It's not nearly what it was during the point of crisis. But I think it's good for kids to know that we were humbled. We were humbled by the unknown. And I think it's important for us. Valerie, you have your hand up. Please, ask your questions. I think it's important.
Yeah, I have about another 5 minutes, and then I will have to jump off. But yes, it's as simple as conversation. As you said, if we just talk, people will share. At the Flower and Garden Show, with our little memorial wall, we had people who stopped, right? They were looking. And then we just said, well, here it is. If you feel you want to write someone's name on a mask, we had these surgical masks with permanent markers, please do so, and we can place it on the wall for you. There were people who were sharing that they lost 16 family members in the course of a week. We had nurses there. We had the nurse who tended to the very first COVID patient in the country who passed away, and in Kirkland. And then she wrote to all my patients who I couldn't save. And, people are ready. They are ready to express if we just open it up and allow them.
So Valerie, did you want to ask your question quickly? Because I want to honor Zsofia's time. She's a very, very busy lady, and we were honored to have you here today, Zsofia. I wanted you to know that. And I think when we do talk to our legislators, we do want to let them know your key ideas on food insufficiency. Go for it, Valerie.
Thank you so much for sharing today. I found it very instructive and so thoughtful. Just a couple of thoughts. I'm a regular volunteer at the Mount Lake Terrace Food Bank, and I've seen there how important cultural relevance is to the clients of the food bank, and also cultural sensitivity and acceptance. I'm fluent in Russian, and we have another person who's fluent in Spanish, and having that language connection as well as the cultural understanding of the clients that we serve has just been so important. to know that if we have buttermilk, it matters to someone, and to know that if we have lamb, that we're going to have a few families who are excited and about to do hand flips, just
Yeah.
it's knowing those cultural points of
Yeah.
reference and being able to support people and connect is the same thing you were saying about your Marshall Islands employees, where they feel welcomed and seen, and then they respond to that with kinship and community. And I see that, and I'm excited to hear it come from you as well. And then I just wanted to extend an offer to connect with you and partner to do the work in the Edmonds School District. I work on the Edmonds PTA Council, and we would love to work hand in hand with you to submit for grants with Verdant and also with the foundation to see what we can do to get these community schools with gardens.
Yeah, that would be great, Valerie. If you can send me an email through our website, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Is there any last question here before we have to let this hard-working lady get back to work? Zsofia, once again, we do honor what you've done. You've committed your life to helping people overcome one of the most basic needs that we all encounter, and that's to put food on the table, and in so doing, connect ourselves back to nature, I guess, is the best way to do it. Soil to soul, I guess.
Yes,
It's been your theme throughout your. I have one last question. Was there any one thing that started you on this mission? I know you've been at it for a long time. So if you were to look back, is there one thing that started you?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's a combination of things, right? Growing up, being able to grow our own food, it made a difference for me and our family during a communistic time in Hungary. Then going through as a refugee and faced with food insecurity ourselves quite often makes something that I understand. I understand what families are going through when there is not enough food, and when there is maybe food, but it's not the right food, all of that. And then Farmer Frog started with the Great Recession in 2009 because people were losing their homes, and we started school gardening. So it's as sort of, as I usually say to our interns, none of us are who end up leading. None of us are out there because, well, true leaders, let's put it that way. There are some folks who are not like this, but true leaders, we are not out there because we just can't live without being a leader. The times find us and we answer it. And that is, I think, the most important piece in all of this, that all of us are called now. We are, as a globe, as a nation, we are in critical moments. And all of us are called to be leaders in our own community, in our everyday actions, because that's where it's going to make a change. You know, we can wait all day long for White House officials and whatnot. They have their handful. It comes down to our own community.
I love your philosophy. Thank you. You are wonderful. And thank you so much, Zsofia. Go do. I know you will.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.